I'm enjoying this gava.
Yes.
Before proceeding with the interviews, I would like to remind you that you are kindly asked to switch your mobile phones to vibrate or meeting mode and avoid using them in the room as a courtesy to the candidates. Even when the phone is not in use or switched on, it can interfere with the electrical equipment, so please do not place it near the microphone or earphone. In addition, with reference to the requirement that the candidate nominated for the position of regional director should conform to good physical condition required of all staff of the organization, I am pleased to inform the committee that WHO Staff Health and Wellbeing Service has accessed the medical examination forms provided by the candidates and has informed me that all candidates appears to have good physical condition required of all staff members of the organization. We will now turn to the interviews. In a moment, I will ask the Secretariat to escort the first candidate, Dr. Michelle Yao, to the room. However, before doing so, I would like to remind you of the modalities for the interviews that we will follow. Each candidate will make an oral presentation of up to 20 minutes, which will be followed by a question and answer section, so that the overall duration each interview will be up to 40 minutes. In the question and answer section, candidates will have up to 3 minutes to reply to questions. On the screen, there will be 2 digital timers. One will keep track of 20 minutes time period. The second will keep track of the 3 minutes candidates have to reply to questions. As concerns the procedure for the question and answer for each candidate, each delegation will receive 4 tags on which is written the name of the member. Following each candidate's oral presentation, delegation wishing to pose a question to the candidate will be invited to insert the name tag corresponding to that candidate. And for that candidate, that Dr. Michelle Yao of Ivory Coast is the first, as we drew the lot, to speak today. So to that, it will be both circulated by the candidate if you wish to ask questions. The tags will be drawn at random, and the corresponding member will be invited to ask a question. The 20-minute time period of the question and answer section will commence as the first question is read. Question may be asked in any of the working languages of the regional committee, that is English, French, and Portuguese. Please ask one question only and avoid multiple questions. I repeat, one question only may be asked by each member state. We will ask as many questions as possible within the 20 minutes. If there are not enough questions to fill the whole duration of the 20 minutes, I will open the floor for additional questions by member states until the 20 minutes are exhausted. If there are no additional questions and if there is still remaining time, the candidate will have the opportunity to deliver an additional oral presentation if he so wishes, until the 20 minutes have been exhausted. Finally, in order to ensure fair treatment of all candidates, I ask all delegations not to interrupt the interview process by taking the floor unless this is on a point of order relating to the conduct of the interview. Are there any questions? I see none. ask the Secretariat to bring in Dr. Michelle Yao of Côte d'Ivoire. Dr. Yao. Good morning, Dr. Yao. Welcome to the Regional Committee for Africa. Thank you for coming in today for this interview. I understand that the Secretariat has already informed you of the way we will proceed this morning. We remind all candidates that you may address the Regional Committee and answer questions in English, French, or Portuguese. Interpretation is provided. We will start immediately with your oral presentation. You have the floor.
Could we have a microphone for this? Oh. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Ministers of Health, Mr. Director General of the WHO, Regional Director ad interim, Dr. Chikwe, honorable delegates, and my dear friends, all protocols observed. It is a great honor, and it is with a sense of deep responsibility that I'm taking the floor before you today. We are gathered here today at a pivotal moment in the history of our continent, an economic climate that is having an impact, an adverse impact on the health sector that requires decisive action and visionary leadership from our region. This is a decisive time for health, for the dignity and the future of over 1.5 billion Africans whose lives depend on the decisions we take here today. The landscape ahead of us is one of concern. The vision of ODA from the United States, as well as the drop in international donor support, have meant that we are under major constraints in our health systems in Africa. And as you know, this is a crisis that is threatening not just what we have already achieved, but also the monitoring of many millions of people who are depending on continued support of these programs, notably HIV/AIDS. So you have my humble and determined submission of my application for the post of Regional Director for Africa of the WHO. Facing these unprecedented challenges, our region must take urgent action, and we must be decisive and transformative in our approaches. And together we must build a new momentum and reposition WHO Africa such that it will become the driving force of an African region that will enjoy better health, autonomy, and one that is resilient. And with our joint determination, we can chart a course forward where health is not a privilege reserved for only a few, but rather an inherent right for each and every one. Let me continue in English to honor our past and to recognize our progress.
Tribute to the visionary leadership of Dr. MICHEZO Mrithi, whose tenures has remarkably elevated our region through the transformation agenda. We also honor all those who came before us and led the foundation of Africa Public Health, particularly the estimated former regional directors. We also solemnly remember the late Dr. Faustin Ndugulile, whose aspiration reminds us that this election embodies our commitment to realizing the future he envisioned. Africa has made substantial progress. Life expectancy has increased. Infant mortality is declining, even though the number is far to meet the SDGs target. And infectious diseases like malaria, HIV/AIDS, and tuberculosis have significantly receded, even though they remain a formidable threat. Yet these hard-won gains are now seriously under threat. Today, our region faces a huge number of crises. In the many countries I have worked in, I have witnessed a troubling reality that still persists. More than 50% of most vulnerable people lack access care delivery, with 40% of health expenditure relying on declining external aid. In some of our country, 60% of health spending is borne by with inflation. Infectious disease remains. Our continent accounts for 90% of global malaria cases. Over 60% of HIV-related deaths occurs in Africa. Non-communicable diseases are rising rapidly and could soon overtake infectious disease if we do not act swiftly. Flood, drought, heat wave, driven by climate change and triggering dozens of major health emergencies each year, severely strain. I still recall the poignant word a nurse I called Sarah. She told me, and I quote, "We have the skill and the will, but when supply and equipment are lacking, we are powerless and we watch mothers suffer and even die." A word echo an urgent warning. If we allow this converging pressure to overwhelm our system, we will forfeit 2 decades of hard-earned progress and compromise the promise of Africa's youth. Without a bold and unified action, our health gain will vanish. Let me continue. Monsieur.
Ladies and gentlemen, given this, we need a renewed vision. My candidacy rests on one single promise. The interpreter apologizes, we keep losing sound. We want an agile regional office with sustainable financing that is people-focused, and I am committed to leading a new African health leadership based on 4 pillars. Prevention in primary health care, and make sure that we have universal health care that is community-focused. Second, contextual equity. While we await solutions to the local realities, because we do not have a one-size-fits approach that works for everyone. Third, we have to have a proactive approach, and we must get ahead of problems in a climate of volatility and emerging pathogens. Fourth, multi-party, genuine partnership, something we need in these lean times, and we must focus on African talent and forge strategic partnerships so we can mobilize fresh capital, knowledge, and technology. This is not just a simple slogan. This is a reality. When we see the drop in foreign assistance, we will now have to redeploy resources, collect data, and adapt our technologies, and rely on our intersectoral partners to ensure that health is a driver of sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand ready to serve you, Your Excellencies, Madam and Ministers. We want to have a program that is linked to the priorities on the ground, which are research and innovation, universal healthcare, resilient health systems, reducing maternal mortality, and reducing the load of endemic transmissible diseases and NCDs as well. I'm proposing a 5-point program over 5 years, and this can be measured. We must accelerate the financial sovereignty for health. 2, reimagine primary healthcare such that we will actually be rolling action out on the ground. 3rd, research and innovation and local production. 4th, strengthening urgent emergency preparedness and climate resistance. And 4th, motivating our staff and organizational excellence in WHO Africa. So let me just go through some of these priorities in greater depth. The first one is to accelerate financial sovereignty for health. This is a reality. as far as I'm concerned, we have to support countries to optimize health investment and to do so with higher impact operations based on national priorities that you will have identified with WHO technical assistance. And we will have to do more with less. We must increase domestic investment so that we will achieve the Abuja target of 15% of our national budget. And we must mobilize heads of state and mobilize a multi-sectoral approach within countries. And we must also boost resources by diversifying our donor base, especially through solidarity mechanisms. And we've lost sound. And to do so, we must facilitate health financing drawing on all our partners. The second point, which is to reimagine primary health care with our main focus, mothers and children, and focusing on NTDs because they're not negligible for us or neglected for us. We must support countries to roll out healthcare that is community focused and is driven by digital data, and we must incorporate prevention and curative approaches into one single approach. We will also help support a broadening of the staff base in each country, and we will use remote delivery of services so that 70% of our people will have access to essential care. We will be working alongside countries and reduce the silo approach and facilitate synergies. Interpreters apologize, we keep losing sound. The third point of this program is we have to focus also on local production. We cannot act in obscurity. Interpreters are grateful for that assistance. The third priority is to drive research, innovation, and domestic production. So we propose a tripling of research in Africa thanks to competitive startup subsidies, and the WHO will shoulder this responsibility to mobilize resources so that we can advance country-led research, and we will accelerate local production of vaccines, diagnosis, and treatment so that African countries will benefit from tech transfer and have sub-regional hubs that will serve the wider African continent. And we will be creating partnerships with digital health continent-wide. The fourth part of this program is to strengthen emergency preparedness. And as WHO Africa, we will boost our regional data services and creating data services in countries in line with international health regulations. And we will also be facilitating a transboundary response effort led by our predecessor. We will also be facilitating the implementation of an understanding and risk management-based approach, and all of this will be reviewed with your support. And the last point of this program is to boost motivation of our staff and to promote organizational excellence in WHO Africa and undertake a reform of our staff complement, which will be adjusted to the budgetary constraints that we're experiencing. We will be results focused in each of our offices in Africa, and there will be no tolerance for any abuse. So all these ambitions will be linked to implementation, and so there will be 5 cross-cutting approaches with a focus on helping to ensure that the WHO regains its technical competence in helping you to come up with the appropriate priorities and facilitate the integration of foreign assistance. Through this cross-cutting approach, the first work stream is to support each decision that has to be made. So there has to be science-based, data-based planning and large-scale technological deployment. Technology shouldn't just be something that is the purview of developed countries. Africa must also be on the cutting edge of the latest in technology so that we can deliver this to through our health systems. There's another point which applies to all of us. We need predictable financing. With you, we will be building commitment from private sector and government stakeholders so that there is more value for money, and we also want to ensure that our investments are properly optimized so that we can facilitate local advocacy. These efforts will be reflected in an innovative approach through a partnership with our private sectors. Sub-regional cooperation will also be another area where we will be focusing in this mobilization effort. We will be exchanging best practices and skills. If I am elected, we will organize an emergency conference to deal with the finance crisis and to ensure that we have it is impactful, and each head of state, along with ministers of finance and health, will be there with the CDC, with regional economic commissions, and we will also bring in private sector stakeholders into a pact which will preserve national budgets with results-based and monitoring focuses. We will also be looking at how we will restructure how we deliver our services. We will be focusing on the results of our service providers when it comes to private healthcare. There's also a multi-sectoral approach under this program. We will not just be looking at health per se, but we will help you to decide and determine what is driving the health problems and mobilize every single sector of the health, everyone involved in this effort. We also have to support communities in understanding the causes of diseases and how they can take better preventive action at the community level. And finally, emergency preparedness, which will require us to have a surveillance-based approach and better knowledge of the risks, and we need WHO support in this so that you're better resourced in terms of human resources and other kinds of resources to respond to emergencies. Ladies and gentlemen, if all of this is to be done, I can assure you that I will be available to you to show you and deliver the leadership you need. In working at the WHO, I have not only looked at our health challenges from afar, I have had first-hand experience of them, and we have tried to deal with the areas most affected in our region. So I will be dealing with the frontline workers, those who are dealing with Ebola in DRC, and in Mozambique, which is ravaged by floods, in Uganda, which is ravaged by conflict, and areas between Ethiopia and Kenya that are grappling with cholera. And this is just to name a few. But I want to assure you of my in-depth resource mobilization experience and my experience in building partnership. These are all the more critical at this particular financial juncture. I, as a representative of the WHO representing countries, I will help you to boost your health systems. This experience has revealed an unimpeachable truth. We need appropriate approaches that are evidence-based, and with your vote, I will deliver this in Africa.
Collective call to action. Honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, we stand at a crossroad. The choice before us will define not only our response to today's crisis, but also the state of the health in Africa for generations to come. We cannot confront 21st century threats with 20th century's tools and mindset. The next regional director must be more than a steward. There must be a catalyst. If we unite around bold and innovative leadership, we can build an Africa where every birth resilient and every health worker valued. Today, I am humbly seeking your trust and your vote, not for myself alone, but for the movement we will build together. Together, we will transform WHO Afro into an institution ruled in African reality, driven by African innovation and accountable to African people. We will realize the Africa our founders envisioned, healthier, empowered, and unshakably resilient. Honorable ministers, distinguished state representatives, let us make story, not by lamenting the resources we no longer receive, but by showing what Africa can achieve when its leaders act with unity, creativity, and determination. In Portuguese. Eu, Dr. Michel Yao,
I am Dr. Michel Yao, and I stand ready to serve.
I think the red light is on. We want to say thank you.
Okay, so osons une nouvelle santé publique.
Let's aim for a new African health, and let's write a chapter of African health in history. Here and now, I wish to thank you. Many thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Yao. We will now continue with the questions and answers. I shall now ask the Secretariat to take the board, show everyone that it is empty, and pass it around to collect the name tags. Kindly fold the name tags, and if you can just show it up for the Secretariat to come where you are and pick it up. Dr. Yao, you may either remain at the podium or take a seat at the main table. Cameroon.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Chair. The candidate, can he hear us?
Voilà.
Okay. So I was saying the candidate in this presentation has spoken about health as being not a privilege but rather a right. Our candidate spoke about dignity. We are currently in a time where countries, in particular African countries, are implementing universal health coverage with a variety and very diverse range of experiences and financing available. And so I did not hear the candidate speak very in depth about this, and so I'd like to clarify with the candidate, how do they intend to really boost this in our region? How can we implement the most appropriate coverage in our countries? How can we ensure that healthcare, access in healthcare is able to overcome obstacles? In many cases, there are 72% of direct payments for healthcare paid in Cameroon. And of course, for some people, for some of our...
I'll ask your question. Just
Yes.
one question.
Yes. Donc,
so essentially, I wanted to ask the candidate how exactly he intends, in his program, to boost UHC in our region. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you very much to the Minister from Cameroon. Certainly, universal health coverage is a critical pillar in the region. And so the officers of the region and the role of the WHO and its Director General is a very important one to accompany us in this process. We need to lean into the experience that we have. We've spoken about I've spoken about my experience, and what I've seen is that the exchange of good practices and best practices is very important. We also need to boost technological innovation. We cannot implement UHC unless we rely on new cutting-edge technology, and not just in healthcare, but across the board. We need to really lean into multi-sectoral partnerships, as I said. We need to ensure that we have access to a very solid system of data so that we can understand exactly how diseases evolve among patients to ensure that we have a robust UHC system. And then thirdly, we need to consider health financing. And in this case, the WHO also plays a very, very important role. There are certain countries in which informality is extremely widespread, much more than formality. And in that case, we need to find health financing. For example, agriculture in my country is a major sector, and we can mobilize resources there to promote health financing. There's no such thing as free healthcare, but there are certain systems that we can put into place with the support of the WHO. And then, of course, continuity of healthcare. We cannot expect to have UHC unless we have it across the board. It must indeed be universal. And similarly here, the WHO can accompany us. We can ensure that we have primary healthcare on a community level. And this community healthcare must be innovative. This must be innovative, for example, in Kenya. We've seen the digitalization of community health services. And this is a way of ensuring that prevention and promotion of healthcare are fundamental. And this indeed then can reduce the impact further down the line in the healthcare system. So ultimately, it's a question of organization. Implementing the right organizational structures in order to implement this UHC, taking all stakeholders and partners into account, leaning into the digitalization of health services, and looking to different places for health financing. as well as ensuring a continuity of healthcare. We must ensure that promotion of health, in particular for NCDs, is a key.
Thank you, Dr. Yawo. Uganda. Uganda, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Yao. I was just asking what strategies you have to end malaria, especially around resource mobilization with the withdrawal of America from funding many activities.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister from Uganda. I've been in Uganda. I've worked extensively in northern Uganda, and access to healthcare is a challenge in regard to treating malaria. So the first one is to support national authorities to refine the priorities. When resources become scarce, it's important to streamline our approach to moving toward this elimination of malaria. So one, to ensure that we revise and we set up clear priorities that are cost effective, that can make an impact. So supporting countries to do so. Secondly, it's required an integrated approach. So WHO, as me leading the regional office, supporting you to make sure that we can mobilize a different sector. Dealing with malaria is about sanitation, is about health promotion, is about community workers to support you, to strengthen this component that is critical. Better prevent that seeing the burden on the health structure increasing if this component is not fixed. So supporting you through a multi-sectorial approach to strengthen this different component. And then thirdly, to ensure that at least we can reduce costs of supplies. Most of the allocation to countries end up buying supplies that are manufactured out of our continent. It's important to manufacture those supplies in our countries. This will help us to reduce costs, will increase accessibility to these items, and will help us to increase diagnostic if we can afford to manufacture these of the diagnosis here. And then thirdly, ensure that we train our health workers so that they can do interventions that are most effective, that will help us with even lower investment to achieve higher impact. So a multi-sectorial approach, a support for mobilization in terms of resources and partners, and a support to increase access to supply that are manufactured in our continent, in our countries, is also critical, including even the group procurement that we are planning to support. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Zambia, you may ask your question.
Thank you. My question is, most countries are constrained financially, and the organization depends on the resources coming from member states. How do you intend to increase the financial standing from the current financial status? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Our objective is to make sure that we become the technical arm of the countries, so to be by your side. And for this, we will also continue the reform that is ongoing for WHO, ensuring that we provide to countries technical support that they need most. This will help countries to clearly identify the priorities, to clearly identify what are the root causes of different disease and the most effective interventions. And secondly, support you to convene all the different stakeholders to make sure that at least investment go around your priorities. This is critical, and this will be done by Zambian that we will train. So this will be a major change that I want to see. WHO remaining its technical role and its technical mandate, supporting countries to build capacity, to identify the priority, helping them to monitor and to evaluate. So this will help us at least to fit within the funding that we are receiving now. And of course, we need to step into resource mobilization. Resource mobilization also requires some trust. I had some experience in it. So it's to make sure that we will rebrand WHO support to countries based on your need, and then we can sell it to partners that investing in WHO will be worth it because it will have an impact on communities. And this is what I want to offer to countries, a new WHO that will support the new public health approach, identifying clearly the priorities, introducing innovation, and then convening different partners around it for countries, but also for us to make sure that we have the minimum technical support that we need. Our country offices will be redesigned based on your need. But we will ensure that those staff that remain have a strong skill, has a strong experience that fit with your specific need in each of the countries. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Côte d'Ivoire.
You're not supposed to.
They shouldn't.
They are not allowed. Honorable Ministers, you cannot ask yourself questions. Burundi. Burundi.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. So regarding that, the fact that 80% of the African population often focuses on traditional medicine for their basic healthcare needs, what is your strategic vision to try to sustainably include traditional medicine into healthcare systems in Africa while guaranteeing the effective and efficient provision of healthcare? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you very much, Minister. I would have loved to answer the Côte d'Ivoire's question, but of course it is even more of a pleasure to take yours to the Honourable Minister. So on the fact that 80% of our population do indeed use TCIM, I think it is important to be able to properly structure this field. What we need to be able to do is understand what exactly are the most widespread traditional medicine practices. And of course, this will require data and research. It's very easy for us to say that such and such a plant has got a certain medicinal virtue or medicinal features, but of course at the same time we require research and development so that we have at least a minimal understanding of what exactly are the components of this plant, and so that we can understand the doses that we require to prescribe to patients. So ultimately, we need research in this area and corresponding training of our personnel. Similarly, it's important to take into account innovation in this area as well. We need to try to understand how exactly we can compile a sort of database of TCIM so that we can facilitate exchanges across the region, so that best practices implemented in one country might also be useful to another. Third, we need to be able to include TCIM into community healthcare. So these traditional medicine practitioners, for example, can also be involved in healthcare prevention and promotion. If there are healers in certain communities, well, then we can also provide these healers with a minimum amount of medical training so that they can contribute to healthcare promotion, or, for example, things like vaccination of children so that they have access to these skills as well. We need to be able to dovetail all of these aspects into community healthcare with a very holistic approach. And I spoke about the need to anchor our work in community healthcare, in primary healthcare. These are essentially the foundation. And without this solid foundation, we cannot get much further. So this foundation needs to be data-driven and data-based. And again, here, the WHO is going to be a very important partner in our work to respond to our African realities.
Abricos, I hope you are not here again.
Penny.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me the floor. And I would like to thank the candidate for all of the innovation that he foresees for healthcare in our region. I have a question about health financing in our country. We have got partnerships and households, national partnerships and households involved in health financing in our country. So how can healthcare authorities work with the private sector, the industries, for example, in order to boost health financing in our countries? Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. The issue of health financing is extremely critical at the moment. It's a very important part of planning for the future. As the regional director, I intend to stand by you for this. We have got certain priorities that are connected to health issues, for example, country-specific problems. And then once we understand country priorities, we can then mobilize resources, specifically partnerships. Every single country, once we have created a dynamic healthcare development plan, we intend to then develop a resource mobilization and investment round per country, I would say. So every country will have a country-specific plan, and this will be useful for prioritizing and identifying countries' needs in order to mobilize specific partnerships. This will ensure that we are able to avoid working in silos, but rather be able to converge all of our resources. And this will also take into account the partnerships in the private sector. When I was preparing my campaign, I've met people who said that they weren't sure exactly where to invest. And so we need to bring these potential donors around the table, and we need to ensure that they know that wherever they decide to bring their funding will be in line with state priorities. And this will be able to free up resources in order to address country realities. Thank you.
Madagascar.
Merci.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Thank you very much for the presentation and for this program. It is certainly a very uncertain time for health financing in Africa. How do you expect to boost health prevention? How can we step up this? This is an important factor in the region. Well, thank you very much to the Honourable Minister for this question. Certainly health prevention is a key element of our strategy. It is important to begin from a point of understanding health determinants. Only through understanding these determinants of health can we face the issues, for example, an increase in NCDs, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, and so on. We need a very comprehensive understanding of each of our country's issues and the specific determinants of health. What exactly, for example, is causing the cancers in our region or in our state? We need to strengthen research in this area in order to better understand and be able to identify where exactly to focus our health promotion programs. There's also the question of education. Proper nutrition, for example, is important from a child's birth. How can we ensure that our young people learn about adequate nutrition? And how can we encourage young people to move instead of sitting in front of screens? Another example I can give you is, for example, the example of cholera. Cholera is connected to sanitation. We need to understand the determinants and causes of this key emergency. This means that we can then address specifically the issue of cholera by focusing on access to clean water, access to sanitation. And of course, in this case, it requires collaboration with the sector of water provision in our countries. And through this, we are able to identify the root causes of these looping endemics that we are seeing in our countries. And again, through this, the WHO will be technical support by our sides.
The time allocated for the interview is now exhausted. I wish to thank you, Dr. Yao, for being with us today. I will ask the Secretariat to accompany you out of the room. While the Secretariat is accompanying you out of the room, I will ask the next candidate, Dr. Yakub, proposed by the United Republic of Tanzania, to be brought in. I will ask delegation. I will ask the delegations to remain in their seats so that we may commence immediately the next interview as soon as the next candidate is here. Good morning, Dr. Yakub. Welcome to the Regional Committee for Africa. Thank you for coming to this interview today. I understand that the Secretariat has already informed you of the way we will proceed today. We remind candidates that they may address the Regional Committee and answer questions in English, French, or Portuguese. Interpretation is provided. We will start immediately with your oral presentation. You have the floor.
Honorable Chairperson, esteemed ministers, heads of delegation, WHO Director General, Acting Regional Director, WHO Afro, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning. Bonjour, bon dia, jambo. At the outset, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the Regional Committee for considering my candidacy. I am deeply honored by this opportunity to serve our region in advancing public health. I extend my heartfelt appreciation to Her Excellency, President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, for nominating me. Her unwavering trust and confidence in my ability to address the health needs of our region is both humbling and inspiring. I also pay tribute to the late Dr. Faustin Ndugulile, our former regional director-elect, whose tragic, untimely passing has brought us to this election today. We are deeply grateful for the condolences and support received during these challenging times. As introduced, my name is Mohammed Janabi. With deep humility and profound sense of responsibility, I stand before you today respectively, seek your support to serve as the next regional director. I'm aware of the heavy responsibility this role entails, and I have undertaken this candidacy with the seriousness and dedication it deserves. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll present 4 key areas: background information, my contribution, my vision, and strategic priorities. First, I commend the WHO, the African governments, and their partners for remarkable efforts in advancing health across our continent. These collaborative endeavors have led to the remarkable progress in many critical health indicators. I also extend my deepest gratitude to each one of you for your invaluable contribution and unity, which have culminated in the successful negotiation of the pandemic accord, a milestone we will celebrate with its formal adoption tomorrow. I bring with me over 30 years of dedicated services in the medical profession and its allied fields. My journey began humbly as a young general practitioner, and through years of hardworking, commitment, accountability, and leadership, I rose to the esteemed position of Professor of Cardiology and Health Executive. Beyond my clinical practice, I have served as an accounting officer, public health specialist, researcher, scientist, author, academic, and a health diplomat, gaining deep insight into complex global health challenges, including conflict scenarios. Excellencies, I had the honor of serving as a senior advisor on health policy and nutrition to His Excellency Dr. Jakaya Kikwete, former President of Tanzania, from 2005 to 2015, 10 years. In this role, I provided technical support in key areas, including the fight against malaria through ALMA, maternal and child health, nutrition, health financing, and communicable diseases. Recognizing the significance of my contribution, President Samia Suluhu Hassan entrusted me to continue serving in this role upon taking office. Under her leadership, I've played an important role in strengthening emergency responses during the 2023 Marburg outbreak and the control of Mpox and Marburg in 2025. How do resilience, inclusion, and prosperity shape and define my vision? Africa today stands at a pivotal moment. Confronting challenges such as financial uncertainties, climate change, misinformation, antimicrobial resistance, and persistent health threats. These issues demand an immediate, unified, and strategic action. During the course of my duties, I've witnessed firsthand patients being denied access to healthcare due to financial constraints, families parting ways with their possession, their very means of living, just to pay hospital bills. Yet, despite making these heartbreaking sacrifices, many still find themselves trapped in debt and still in poor health conditions. For me, this is a harrowing experience. Out-of-pocket costs have pushed countless families into the depths of poverty, thereby recycling poverty. Honorables, health is a universal human right. I'm committed to ensuring access for all, including people with disabilities, and promoting gender equity. So what evidence demonstrates my capacity to lead transformative change? Honorable, trust is earned through results, and my contribution to health speaks for themselves. I understand the challenges ahead, and I bring a renewed resolve to tackle them. Having visited numerous member states, I have absorbed the urgent need for a fundamental shift in how WHO Afro addresses the unique needs of each country. If elected, I will work closely with governments and collaborators to lead this transformation, creating a more agile, country-focused, and impactful organization. Excellencies, I now turn to my second point, outlining my contribution to health, beginning with initiatives focused on strengthening health systems. My track record spans decades, from co-leading HIV vaccine trials in Tanzania and Mozambique in the early 2000s, to driving public health advocacy that in 2012 inspired President Kikwete to take a public HIV test, encouraging 5 million Tanzanians to get tested that year. In 2021, my efforts also supported President Samia's public COVID-19 vaccination, which played a key role in countering misinformation and boosting vaccine uptake. In 2014, I founded the Jakaya Kikwete Heart Institute and served its inaugural executive director. Within 5 years, through strategic leadership and innovation, we achieved 95% reduction in overseas heart disease referrals. I'll give you an example. In fiscal year 2021-2022 alone, the Institute performed 2,760 surgeries domestically, saving the government approximately $13 million. These savings today have been reallocated, strengthening primary health care and subsidizing services for disadvantaged population, enhancing healthcare accessibility for all. What strategies led us to this success? Our success stemmed from strategic investment in workforce development, infrastructure, domestic health financing, and active engagement with civil society and the private sector. Today, the Institute serves as a regional hub, performing major surgeries from pacemaker insertions to bypass operations. This has attracted patients from across Africa, boosting our medical tourism, fostering South-to-South cooperation, and generating foreign revenue. In 2022, I assumed leadership of Muhimbili National Hospital, Tanzania's largest healthcare facilities, overseeing 2,400 beds, 4,000 staff, and attending 3,800 patients daily. Our oversight extends to 12,000 satellite facilities, leveraging telemedicine, e-health, and artificial intelligence. To amplify community impact, we initiated a strategic plan to expand community health workforce to 137,000 by year 2030, connecting grassroots population to the formal healthcare system. In 2025, this very year, Muhimbili secured $363 million loan from the Republic of South Korea with very favorable terms. 0.01% interest, 15 years grace periods, and a 25 years repayment. These milestones strengthens diplomatic ties and supports transformation aligned with GPW14. Additionally, early this month of May, Tanzania signed an MOU with United Arab Emirates to construct a specialized infectious diseases hospital in the junction of 6 East and Central African nations, enhancing regional outbreak detection, prevention, and response. If entrusted with the role of regional director, I will apply the same bold visionary leadership, mobilizing sustainable resources and forming partnership beyond traditional donors, ensuring our region receives strategic directions, accountability, and measurable results, including small islands and countries. Next point is on emergency preparedness. In 2015, while serving as a health advisor to President Kikwete, who was appointed by UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to a high-level panel following Ebola outbreak, I played a key role in supporting his contribution to the panel's critical discussions. The role took me to Liberia, Equatorial Guinea, and Sierra Leone, gaining invaluable experience in emergency preparedness. The panel's recommendations were instrumental in shaping the WHO approach in managing emergencies that we witness today. Excellencies, I'll move to demographic transition. By year 2035, 60% of our region's population will be youth. Good thing, fueling growth and innovation, but facing risks like substance abuse, unprotected sex, teenager pregnancies, mental health challenges. Simultaneously, the elderly population will double, intensifying healthcare demands. We can address these dual challenges while harnessing transformative potentials of our youth. The next focus is on fostering a transformative mindset. Excellencies, I bring a proven record of transformative leadership and dynamic cross-sector collaboration. Building on WHO's Afro 2015 transformation agenda, I'm committed to advancing reforms that bring really lasting health improvements. My vision includes strengthening our country offices, empowering regional secretariat, and catalyzing resilient health systems that serve our people. As WHO and the UN transformation evolve, our region must rise to the moment, adapting strategically and aligning reforms with our national aspiration. It is through unity, adaptability, and innovation that we can unlock our full potential and deliver impact. Transformation is not a task of one. It is a shared journey. Collective responsibilities and united efforts from all stakeholders are vital. I believe together we can meet both current and emerging health challenges with resilience and foresight. Excellencies, I will now outline my key priorities. So despite the significant challenges we face today, they present a unique opportunity for us, transforming obstacles into pathways for progress. I am optimistic and ready to take bold steps to advance my 7 transformative priorities, each equally important and essential to fulfill my vision. My first priority is achieving universal health coverage in alignment with SDGs. With under 5 years to achieve SDGs, our region UHC index is 46, well below the average of 68. Globally today, half of the world population, I'm talking of 4.5 billion people, lack essential services, health services. And over 1 billion face catastrophic health costs. Many of these people reside in our region. I'm committed to ensuring universal health access and reducing financial hardship. My second priority is securing sustainable funding. With over 80% of the WHO budget reliant on voluntary contribution, predominantly earmarked for specific programs, the organizational autonomy and capacity to set and implement priorities are significant constraints. We are all witness to this reality today. To safeguard our region's independence and ensure it can fulfill its mandate, we must advocate for an increased assessed contribution and promote more predictable, flexible, and sustainable investment. I really commend honorable ministers for your 2022 commitment to increase assessed contribution to 50% by 2030 and for reaffirming the Abuja Declaration of 2021. To step up domestic financing, including through blended financing, private-public partnership, and solidarity levies. My third priority is enhancing emergency preparedness to build a resilient health system and foster cross-border collaboration. My fourth priority is advancing maternal and child health as well as nutrition. Africa bears a disproportionate share of global health challenges. 70% of the maternal deaths in our continent, 56% of the death of under fives, and a stunting rate of 30%, well above the global one of 22. Despite the daunting figures, I believe we can turn the tide. For instance, in Tanzania, under President Samia's leadership, we have achieved 80% reduction in maternal mortality, from 556 to 104 per every 100,000 live births within 7 years. This remarkable progress was recognized with the 2024 Goalkeepers Award, underscoring the transformative power of primary health care and unwavering political will. My fifth priority is tackling communicable diseases, HIV, AIDS, TB, malaria, and non-communicable diseases, and neglected tropical diseases through a One Health approach, a comprehensive strategy that acknowledges the interconnectedness of human, animal, and the environment. My sixth priority is combating antimicrobial resistance, which causes 1.2 million deaths annually. Alarming, honorable ministers, 40% of our member states lack antimicrobial surveillance system database. I'm committed to collaborating with you to establish surveillance database, enhance monitoring, promote responsible antibiotic use, and foster cross-sector collaboration. My seventh priority is strengthening local production of diagnostic, therapeutics, and vaccines. By leveraging the pandemic agreement, engaging our diaspora, enhancing health diplomacy, and sharing expertise. I will also promote research development in traditional medicine, aligning with the WHO Traditional Medicine Strategy 2025-2034. Excellencies, as I conclude, I stand before you not merely as a candidate, but as a dedicated partner, unwavering in my commitment to our shared vision of a healthier, stronger region.
Yacob.
With a proven track record in health leadership and clear vision
Dr.
of continuity, I pledge to serve with integrity and determination. I seek your trust and your vote. Thank you very much. Go to the court.
Thank you, Professor Yacob. We'll now continue with questions and answers. I shall ask the Secretariat to take the board, show everyone that it is empty, and pass it around to collect the name tags. Professor Yacob, you may either remain at the podium or take a seat at the main table. I will draw the first name tag. Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the candidate about what would it be the strategy for small countries and islands in terms of getting more attention, in terms of their support of improving the healthcare system as a whole. The question is coming in relation to sometimes there are confluence of interest in terms of where to put the priority of the little resources that we are managing on the continent, and the approach tends to be prioritizing big countries. But sometimes
Equatorial Guinea, you have
countries
one question.
can be the opportunity to say, okay, so what would you do about securing the support from WHO under your leadership? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for a very important question of small islands. And if I can give examples, maybe we are talking about Seychelles, Mauritius, Comoros. You face unique challenges such as climate change, limited healthcare infrastructures, and vulnerability to health emergencies. So, if elected, I will ensure these nations receive a targeted support to address these specific needs. First, I will advocate for tailored strategies like including strengthening your health system, improving access to essential medicines. I know small islands depend a lot on imported foods. Unfortunately, these are seasoned foods which come with a lot of salts, increasing NCDs. We'll focus on training and retention of your workers. But the other thing is an innovative method like telemedicine or artificial intelligence, because you can cater with telemedicine, do consultations with neighboring nations while building your workforce and capacity on health or human resources for health. So you have specific needs. We'll make sure that you get preparedness with all the health emergencies, because you are prone to preparedness like any other country. So prepare on surveillance, which has to start now before the emergencies start. We'll assist recognizing the vulnerability to climate change. So I will support development of climate-resistant healthcare infrastructures, build on early warning signs. And lastly, I'll try to prioritize integrating small nations into larger regional health networks, ensuring you have representations during decision-making bodies, because this is where your voice has to be heard and have the data. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jacob. We'll now ask South Africa to ask the question.
Thank you very much, Professor. Do countries need to be rich to implement universal health coverage for their citizens? Why are countries on our continent which have got universal health coverage so few? Thank you very much.
South Africa, just one question. Can you limit your question to one?
It's one question divided into two, Honorable Chair.
I'm sorry, just one. Which one of the questions you want him to answer? Countries rich or
No.
what? Which question?
Okay, I was asking whether countries need to be rich in order to implement universal health coverage, and why in our continent there are so few.
No. Please answer, Professor Yako.
So which one, the rich one or the... No, Honorable Minister, thank you for the very good question. And does the country have to be rich to have universal health coverage? No, let me maybe start by, I firmly believe that primary health care and universal health coverage, one, they are inseparable and they are foundation of achieving an equitable, sustainable health system. So my vision of is just all about planning. I'll give you an example. In Tanzania, we've made a significant stride in this area by having we call it senior advice on health policy, where we expanded our primary health care infrastructure to underdeserved areas. Because one of the challenges when I was moving around, one thing you have to build on your community health workers, because these are the people who have the trust of the villages or the underdeserved. They are the people who are communicating with your general population every day. So equipping the frontline workers, like community health workers, and there's other thing which unfortunately is not very prominent in Africa, they call nurse practitioners, because you don't have enough doctors. So if they get training on basic things like immunization, maternal and child health, health education. So these efforts will improve access. But the country has to be rich. My personal experience, I'll say this. One of the things about health insurance, I don't think we've given enough education. You know, I've moved around in most of the member states. You find our members of national health insurance, they are those who are sick. So you have 80% of your members, they are sick people, and only 20% are the healthy ones, and these are the mandatory ones. So I think it's all about health education to our people. They should start getting insurance before they get sick, because it becomes even more expensive for the national insurance, and that's why most of them, they don't succeed. So at the regional level, my priority will be to try to scale up and use some context-sensitive models. And I'll work with you, honorable ministers, so we can discuss. We have got 47 member states with different economies, different population. Talking of Seychelles, 100,000 people. Talking of Nigeria, 220 million people. So each country has to deal specifically what are the challenges and how we can solve them.
Thank you very much. Cameroon, you have the floor. Cameroon, lucky today.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a simple question for the candidate. What can he do to enhance the impact of the regional office in shared initiatives among several countries? We have been working to tackle epidemics and on vaccinations with certain countries, but we can't quite clearly see the impact of the regional office in this. So what is he going to do to enhance its visibility and impact?
Question que j'ai posée, madame.
I just asked the question, madam.
Qu'est-ce que le candidat va faire?
What will he do to enhance the impact of the regional office on shared initiatives among several countries, especially tackling epidemics and on vaccinations?
Can you, Cameroon, repeat the question? Just only the question, not the background.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just ask the candidate, what will he do to enhance the impact of the regional office in initiatives that involve several countries, especially when it comes to tackling epidemics and vaccination, because in our sub-region, especially Chad, DRC, and Niger, we have joint campaigns, but we're not quite seeing the impact of the regional office in these initiatives. What is he going to do to enhance that? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for a very pertinent question about, I think if I got it to you right, is your representations of the countries which you have mentioned. I think my response will be, if elected as a regional director, one of the first things will be to sit down with the members of the Secretariat, the members who I'm going to meet them at Brazzaville, and see, because we are all aware of the restructuring, reorganization, which is happening at the HQ, and I'm sure we have to get prepared with the 6 regions of the WHO. So I will sit down with the members, see how the organogram will look like, discuss openly with everyone, listen to member states. And I think from there, I will be in a better position to see what you are saying, which is very important, the equal distribution of the positions. We are 47 member states. I think regardless of the size, the economy of your country, this is our organ. All of us has to be there. I know we don't have 47 positions at AGO, but we'll share the positions according to what I'm going to see on the ground. Maybe it's a little bit too premature for now, but what I promise, there will be equal chance for everyone, depending on your qualifications and your integrity, you'll get a position. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Gambia.
Thank you very much. We thank Professor for that presentation. Professor, one of the biggest challenges we have as countries is the issue of getting high-quality medicines and medical equipment for our nations, and that contributes immensely to the poor health care services delivered. Now, the financial challenges are there. No matter how much resources we mobilize domestically, if these prices keep on skyrocketing, we'll never get what we want. What are your strategies in dealing with pharmaceuticals, equipment manufacturers, to ensure that low-income countries in your region, if you are elected, are able to procure these items at a reasonable price for our people? What strategies will you use? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister from Gambia, for a very important question. And if I step back, COVID-19 exposed us how vulnerable and the gaps which we saw. But to me also it gave us a footprint, a blueprint, to see the deficiencies we have in diagnostic, therapeutics, and vaccines. Medicines are very expensive, and we have seen now with the financial constraints we are having in the continent, I think we have to come with the innovative measures. And one of them, apart from increasing our domestic financing. How about pooling our resources, including the small islands which we've just discussed, and do this bulk procurement? We can have a better negotiation of prices, whether with Gavi or Global Fund, when we work, because all we need here is to work together. 2, pandemic accord, which we are going to adopt tomorrow, gives us another chance of Africa. Time has come to have our local manufacturing capacity. Now, while we are trying to do that, why don't we start by 2 things? We have regulatory things which have to be looked after, and we have good examples. We look on Ghana, we look on Tanzania, we look on Egypt. I know it's not in our region. At the same time, we have to build on the workforce. Who is going to work in this? Because, okay, the pandemic accord is going to be agreed tomorrow. So I think it's very important, all these things to go in parallel. Build our workforce, the financing, which we have just discussed a little bit, pool procurement. I think we can, I'm very optimistic that it will reduce the prices, we can get the generics, the patents can be discussed, but we have to start now. And the regulatory, if you see all these countries, they've got level 3, Tanzania now is going to level 4 of regulatory, so we can learn from each other. But the ones which we have now, why we have a ground where to start. I think it's just a matter of decisions. And I think this decision was supposed to be made yesterday. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
We now have Central African Republic.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable candidate, Professor, you have stressed support to countries and direct work with the countries. Could you describe to me in concrete terms how you are going to manage this in order for the WHO at the country level to change its way of working in order to have a greater impact?
Madam Chair, kindly, I missed the question. The device was not working. I just said how I had the last bit.
Can you kindly repeat Central African Republic?
Translation is not good. I see that the question that were asked by my Cameroon was not well translated, and mine was very clear. Now I'm going to speak in English.
Please ask your question.
Yeah, but this need to be taken into account, Chair. Yeah, the candidate stressed the need to make WHO work better and in an impactful manner at country level. He would work closely with countries. I would like him to describe how this transformation will happen at country level in a way that he is projecting.
Thank you, Honorable Minister from Central Africa, for a very important question. I think I touched on it, but let me say it again. We have 47 member states with different level of development, different level of economy, different level of challenges. I think among the first things which I'm going to do is to speak with member states. And as I said, Our challenges in Africa is not a one-size-fits-all. There are those who they are a little bit farther than the others. So among the things which I'm going to give priority is to try to understand, do a DNA, who has what. I'll give you a very simple example, Honorable Minister. How many member states know that Tanzania does major heart surgeries? How many people know Kenya does kidney transplant? So I think we need to map. We might be having, which I believe we do, a lot of resources among ourselves, and there's no better time for solidarity and working together, not in silos like now. So where I'm going to find deficiencies in Central Africa, maybe in South Africa I can get the expertise. So that exchange of expertise and collaboration, Honorable Minister, will be very important to me. And I think this is how I'm going, because how I'm going to solve or discuss solving with you the problem of Central Africa might be very different from the ones in Burundi. So we'll work together and forge our way forward. Thank you, Honorable Minister, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Professor. The time allocated for the interview is now exhausted. I wish to thank Professor Yakub for being with us today. Now, I'd like to ask the Secretariat to accompany you out of the room. While the Secretariat... While the Secretary is accompanying the candidate out of the room, the next candidate, Professor Mustafa Majayawaya, proposed by Togo, is to be brought in. I will ask the delegations to remain in your seats so that we may commence immediately the next interview, as soon as the next candidate is here. Good morning, Professor Mustafa. Welcome to the Regional Committee for Africa. Thank you for coming to this interview today. I understand that the Secretariat has already informed you of the way we will proceed this morning. We remind candidates that they may address the Regional Committee and answer questions in English, French, or Portuguese. Interpretation is provided. We will start immediately with your oral presentation. Professor Mustafa, you have the floor.
Elle m'accorde 2 secondes. C'est ça. Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Chair, Director General of the WHO, Interim Director of WHO Africa, ministers, representatives of ministers, distinguished guests, thank you for having me in this room. Firstly, allow me to share a thought for my brother, Faustin, who we lost tragically a few months ago. And I would once again wish that his soul rest in peace. Condolences to all of. I am pleased to be able to present here in front of this august assembly of ministers. And I am lucky enough to know quite a few of you, because I had the privilege of being Minister for Health for 9 years. I would like to thank the Togolese Ministry for the confidence that they placed in me in designating me as the Togolese candidate for the position of the African Regional Director. My governmental experience over 9 years has been marked by 11 key action points led within the ministerial team. The first was reforming the management of hospitals with a contractual approach, which was recommended by the World Health Assembly in 2003. That approach led to excellent results. I did a presentation on this during the Regional Committee of 2022. It led to a report, and that whole experience was evaluated by the WHO. That evaluation led to analog conclusions that we observed and led to recommendations in order to refine it and to improve it. The second key action was the key management of 2 epidemics, meningitis in 2016 and COVID-19 in 2020 and 2020. Between 2020 and 2023. The other action was in dealing with then the fourth one was dealing with a terrorist attack in Togo based on a One Health integrated approach in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. The fifth action point was the Regional Committee of the WHO and the reform of that in 2022. Sixth action, the close collaboration of the Ministry of Health with the training courses for the School of Medicine. Then there was also the collaboration with the Ministry of Health and the various other partnerships. Seventh action was the efficient and equitable use of human resources, which we deployed into regional hospitals. We sent out managers into the various hospitals, and notably managers of health. Another action point was the use of health resources. We were able to strengthen trust with our various partners. Ninth action, opening the paramedical health school in the 5 economic regions in Togo. Each of them has a training unity for nurses and midwives. This has strengthened the training workers in regional areas. We also strengthened universal health coverage. This was set up in a progressive way in Togo. Firstly with state agents, and then we rolled it out to informal sectors, and then since January 2024 we rolled it out to the rest of the Togolese population. Last key action was the Lomé action, which brought together heads of state, African heads of state, to fight against inferior quality and falsified drugs, which is a scourge in Africa. Whilst I was carrying out these activities in my role as minister, there was also an intercontinental and international initiative. Because I have a lot of experience since I was the first president of African CDC, for 9 years I participated in all of the activities of the regional committee, all of the WHAs, and I participated in the Assembly of the Ministers of Health for West African Health. Before I had my position of minister, for 25 years I worked as a doctor. I opened the first services of rheumatology, one of the biggest training centers in Togo, the Sylvianus Olympio. On average, I saw thousands of people every year, and there were 300 people per year hospitalized in that center. In addition to being a practicing doctor, I contributed to the training in rheumatology in Togo and in other African universities. I trained 5 rheumatology professors. I participated in 8 juries for the accreditation for higher education. I participated in one of the biggest paramedical centers in Togo for over 30 years. Now that has 9 branches with 2 regional branches. In research, I have 150 documents or reports on my website, and those works led to a publication in the current position based on the experiments that we led in Togo. Based on all of this experience, I would like to benefit from your trust, ministers, to hold the position of Regional Director for Africa of the WHO. We would like to create our continent a place where access to health is based on a robust, strong and resilient health system. A system that is tied into the Sustainable Development Goals and the overall program of the WHO. To do so, we need to strengthen what we have already created, but we also need to innovate. We also need to ensure that things are based on the current context in which we live. To do so, we have 7 priorities and strategies. First, to build a health system that is resilient and efficient. Second, universal health coverage. Third, fight against epidemics and catastrophes and health prevention of illnesses. Fourth, we need to reduce insecurity. Fifth, ensure that there are enough medicines and health products. Sixth, fight against the health determinants, those linked to climate change, for example. And the last one, the governance of the WHO. Regarding the first one, an efficient and resilient health system, we need to ensure that this priority takes into account all of the health systems, going from the health workers right up to the governance, without forgetting financing and the crucial needs for financing today, based on the issues which we are all aware of, the withdrawal of some of our partners. So there is an urgent need for our countries not only to increase their domestic funding, but also to find innovative ways of achieving more funding. Think about tobacco and sugary drinks and the taxes on those. And I think we could also add taxes to cosmetic products. Then we need rigor in how we manage our resources. We need to use public-private partnerships as well. We need to use human resources. And all of this in an intersectorial approach that takes into account the One Health approach and the Sustainable Development Goals. Taking into account the configuration of our countries and the need to use artificial intelligence for telemedicine, to best make use of our specialists in rural, isolated areas. And all of this needs to be put into context, which means that all the WHO interventions should be in line with the national health plans of the various different countries. Second priority is universal health coverage, which dictates the need for health for all of our citizens. We need to advocate in all of our countries to achieve stronger governance and commitment. We need a plan and evaluation. Third, we need to fight against epidemics and catastrophes. We need to strengthen and support countries so that they can strengthen their plans to manage crises. We need to deploy efforts to counter epidemics. We need to take into account intermediate efforts and pioneering strategies, such as those we took to counter COVID-19 pandemic, and of course the groundbreaking agreement on pandemic prevention. Fourth priority is reduction of various illnesses. We face a number of NCDs and communicable diseases and accidents on the road. We need to promote health for mothers and children. We need to take into account our elderly and the changing demographics. We need to improve hygiene and sanitary measures, because half of our population doesn't have access to drinking water. All of this needs to be done with the participation of the communities, like religious leaders, the cantonal leaders, the local populations, and civil society. And for each of these axes, we believe it's key to set up a dedicated plan. Fifth priority is for medicines and health products. We need to locally produce medicines and vaccines. To do so, we need hubs, regional hubs for group acquisitions, and we also need to promote joint purchasing. We also need to develop traditional medicine, promote research through training, financing, and partnerships. The second aspect in this is to fight against falsified drugs and inferior quality products. We are a victim of these poor quality drugs, and that is one of the key aspects of the Lomé Initiative and the African Initiative. There is also an international convention, and we need to maybe subscribe to that. We also need a regional approach to deliver good products onto the market. This won't be efficient if it is only applied at a country level. Sixth priority is the fight against health determinants, particularly those linked to climate change. We know the consequences of that very well, because those consequences affect the communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. We need to encourage states to elaborate and set up integrated health plans, because climate change is one of the priorities of the One Health strategy and the Sustainable Development Goals. Last priority is the governance of WHO Africa. We need to consolidate what we have already achieved, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the work achieved by Dr. Mrithi and Dr. Tedros. We need to ensure that the Secretariat is more efficient. We need to constantly listen to the states. We need to ensure that it is more fluid whilst respecting the procedures of the WHO. We also should strengthen the collaboration between local entities, West Africa, SADC, and other entities, whilst also strengthening partnerships with the private sector. We have seen the positive effects of our close collaboration with partners during the COVID-19 pandemic. We also need to strengthen the role of countries in positions of power. When we take into account the budget limits, it has an effect on the global organigram of the WHO and the African organigram. We have to take that into account. But we also want to set up an efficient and humane approach whilst accompanying the people that will be affected. When we look at our continent, you can see that the priorities that I have outlined are all interconnected, and they are pillars of the health system. The history of our continent, reminds us that we need to take into account two weaknesses. The first is our limited capacity to set up initiatives, such as for primary health care, Health for All by 2020, the Bamako Initiative, the Millennial Goals for Development, and the Sustainable Development Goals. All of these initiatives are relevant and praiseworthy, but they haven't been widely implemented. So one of my concerns is to advocate for and repeat the relevance of these initiatives to the states so that we can strengthen the implementation of the various national plans for the development of our health systems. The second weakness is the lack, the shortfalls of our hospitals, particularly for reference hospitals, where the management of those hospitals has led to a reduction in life expectancy. We need to advocate for the implementation of a mechanism and an efficient management tool. Ministers, guests, I am determined to implement all that I have presented. My career as a doctor and as a researcher and an academic, but also as someone who has had to manage for 9 years a ministry for health. Your support is necessary for me, but your trust is also key to enable me to accede to this position. I will, of course, in that position, be open to collaboration with all. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Mustafa. We'll now continue with questions and answers. I will now ask the Secretariat to take the bowl, show everyone that it is empty, and then pass it around to collect the name tags. Professor Mustafa, you may remain at the podium or take a seat at the main table. No, you may remain at the podium or take a seat at the main table. I will now draw the first name tag. Seychelles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Professor, considering the numerous regional organizations dedicated to enhancing health and well-being across the African continent, what strategies will you implement to harmonize their efforts, minimize the duplication of initiatives, and to ensure that no priority is overlooked or marginalized? Thank you.
Oui, merci.
Yeah, thank you, Seychelles, for that very interesting question. It's true that we have many partners at the regional level and many partners even at the international level. And what we see most often is a duplication of effort. And that's why there's a need to come up with a national health development plan, look at this with the various entities, and have frequent working meetings and a common working meeting. It's today possible with the tools at our disposal. It means that each time, each partner should be aware of what the other partner is doing. And we have to serve as a lead. Within a country, we have seen that there's the risk that you talked about, quite rightly so, a duplication of effort. And you have partners who go into the same sector but use different channels. So the ministry should associate itself with its partners and have meetings, collective meetings, in order to determine the priorities and see where the various resources and means are to be channeled. It would avoid this duplication of effort, and as you said, it would make us more effective.
Thank you, Professor. I will now draw the next name tag. Senegal.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Thank you for your statement, which was very clear. Just a question. If you are appointed a new regional director for Africa, what, in concrete terms, will be your strategy in order to promote health sovereignty of member states?
Merci.
Thank you. Health sovereignty obviously includes, first and foremost, setting up local production of vaccines. And such local production cannot be done for each country. There are various poles and focal points to be outlined so that each focal point will serve as coverage for the entire continent. That's the first point. And therefore, we need well-trained people. We need to put in place well-equipped institutions. We need to put in place as well universal health coverage. What I mean is that vaccine sovereignty will help us cut down on costs and will make it possible for our people to have better access to those vaccines. Another aspect is that as regards new drugs, new medication, new vaccines, we need to combat disinformation. And this means that a community approach, a collective approach to explain the foundation of our arguments down to the very bottom of the pyramid is fundamental. And this is what the various ingredients for vaccine sovereignty involve. Obviously, we don't have the same priorities as elsewhere. And this is why your question is of great interest. Thank you.
The next name tag is from Gambia.
Thank you very much once again, Madam. Thank you. My question to Prof. Prof, having been a minister for so many years, I'm sure you're aware that one of our biggest challenges is capacity when it comes to specialist care in many of our countries. But looking around the entire continent, we have countries that really have virtually excess capacity. And I believe we can complement each other in ensuring that the entire continent is covered. What strategy do you have in your mind with regards to how you can help, especially the smaller countries with limited capacity, by doing the South-South cooperation or inter-country cooperation if you get elected? Thank you.
Yeah. No. Pardon, s'il vous plaît.
Sorry, I didn't quite get your question.
The Gambia just gave only the question.
Yes, thank you.
C'est bon.
Prof, to build local capacity, specialist capacity in African countries, do you have a strategy whereby countries could support each other with WHO facilitation, getting candidates from one country to be trained and specialized in other countries in the African region? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Yes, a very interesting question, because in our today, there are many specialist operations taking place. Obviously, it is not effective for specializations to be present everywhere, particularly in small countries. What the WHO can do is to map the existing specialties in each country and serve as a transmission channel relating to the various specialties in one country or another. Obviously, you have the possibilities to facilitate ideas and granting scholarships in order for people to be in the know. In any case, that kind of training between our countries obviously costs much less and they are better adjusted to the African context. So I take that question as something which we need to advocate and can take aboard if you entrust the directorship to me. Thank you.
Mustafa, we now have Central African Republic.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister. I refer to the fact that you have been health minister and you would like to be the regional director at a key point in time, at a key change where we are moving from one age to another. The WHO is being transformed with not many resources, but with the same ambitions. So as a regional director or former minister, you know what is expected of a WHO. How can you take up that challenge at the country level?
Plus,
that is, help countries to do more with few resources.
Cher ami.
Well, my dear friend, it's true that we are going through a period where we are seeing costs being reduced, or resources rather being reduced. Obviously, we will have to redefine our priorities. and give a set of priorities so that the resources, the limited resources that are available, are allocated to the major priorities. That's the first point. The second point is that you need an effective use of those limited resources. There was a question just now about avoiding duplication of efforts and avoiding scattered efforts. So there is a need to have an integrated approach. The first or the third factor is that the present situation encourages us, in fact, to review the health budget in our states. It encourages us to innovate, to explore all avenues in terms of innovation. I spoke about taxes on cosmetic products just now. So the national budget, as established, needs to be effective. And that is why I was saying just now that the WHO, as I see it, would encourage countries further in effective implementation of all the national health development plans and their guidelines. Of course, we have to be stricter, more disciplined in managing our resources, because the discipline we apply will lead to sound management, and sound management is the best way of harnessing greater resources. Thank you very much.
Cameroon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Je voudrais... Merci.
Thank you. Given the key role that community health officials play in the new public health sector, may I ask the candidate what strategy he thinks can be useful in our countries from an individual standpoint, but even more so beyond our national borders.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you for touching on one of the important components, but which is perhaps not appreciated or given the due importance. Community health workers, we know what role those officers play outside of the cities in the rural areas. And if you look at a number of countries, in Togo, for example, we have come up with a national plan for community health workers. And that plan has the objective of a formal harmonization of the recruitment procedures, the content of the modules and the training for them, as well as the tasks to be entrusted to them. So, of course, the plan I am speaking about, obviously, you have to take account of the context in each country, because you have to bear in mind the very essence of what a community worker involves. In order for those workers and their tenure to reach the stated objective. So community health workers and their role, I was speaking just now about products, about counterfeit products, disinformation. These health workers are an important link in the health chain. So that is how I intend to broach it. There are striking examples and constructive examples relating to community health workers with various plans, and Togo learned a great lesson from what happened in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. 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 Thank you.
South Africa. South Africa, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready, ma'am. Professor, women, children, and adolescents are the most vulnerable when it comes to diseases and health care because they are mostly the poorest members of society. Promotion of maternal, newborn, and child health was established to reverse this trend, and in addition, Global Leaders Network of Heads of State was established to try and interest heads of states to pay attention to this. Do you think our heads of states are paying sufficient attention to this issue?
Can you kindly ask the question, please?
I was just about to do so. Do you think our heads of states are paying sufficient attention to this issue of women and children? And what will you do if you are elected to push them in that direction? Thank you.
Merci pour cette question.
Thank you for the question. Maternal, newborn, and vulnerable population health. Do our heads of state give sufficient attention to this? The answer is yes. Now, is there a need to reinforce various actions? The answer is also yes. If you look at our various countries, universal health coverage is talked about, and the first objective relates to vulnerable people, women, children, and newborn. Because that category of population is a victim of lack of access to appropriate health care. You may remember that in various countries there have been various programs, free cesarean operations, free health care for pregnant women. But now with UHC, those various programs have been merged together, incorporated into one plan, and this makes it easy to take on board women, children, and pregnant women, in fact. And this, in the long term, will reduce the newborn death rate, and the death rate of children, and death rate linked to pregnancies. You also talked about vulnerability, and this goes hand in hand with the combating poverty. This highlights the One Health concept. If you look at the development objectives, you can see it is clear that if you need better health, you have to combat poverty. Health includes, for example, providing drinking water. So efforts are being made, yes. Are further efforts needed? Yes. And that is why we have to continue advocating the UHC and its effectiveness. And I expect to do this through repeated visits to each of our countries. Thank you.
Madagascar.
Merci. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is this. There was no reference to reduction of maternal mortality. You didn't refer to that. What strategy do you propose along those lines?
Merci.
Thank you. Maybe I was a bit too quick because I spoke to you about maternal and child health. It's true that the death rate is high in our countries, yes. Furthermore, Togo is a victim of the fact that over the last 10 or so years, the statistics you have access to include figures from a census 10 or so years ago. So we are now carrying out a census which makes it possible for us to see the real state of affairs, because progress has been made through free cesareans, through free and healthcare given to women and children, and through UHC. So I am convinced that universal health care, which we are putting in place, will help us greatly in combating the mortality in newborns, in women and children, particularly as regards rural populations and underprivileged populations. Thank you.
The time allocated for the interview is now exhausted. I wish to thank Professor Mustafa for being with us today, and I will ask the Secretary to accompany you out of the room. While the Secretary is accompanying the candidates out of the room, the next candidate, Dr. Mohamed Rame, proposed by Guinea, is to be brought in. I will ask the delegation to remain in your seats so we may commence immediately the next interview as soon as the candidate is here. Good afternoon, Professor Drame. Welcome to the Regional Committee for Africa. Thank you for coming to this interview today. I understand that the Secretariat has already informed you of the way we'll proceed today. We remind candidates that they may address the Regional Committee and answer questions in English, French, or Portuguese. Interpretation is provided. We will start immediately with your oral presentation. You have the floor.
Should I?
Please proceed.
Thank you. First of all, please note that I will make most of my statement in French, with this introduction and final statements in English and Portuguese, the two other working languages of our region that I have been using throughout my career. Excellencies, Ministers of Health, Dr. Tedros, Director General of WHO, distinguished representatives of WHO member states, dear colleagues and partners, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to formally ask you for your support and backing for my candidacy for the honorable position of WHO Regional Director for Africa, for which I humbly invite you to select me. Je tiens avant tout.
Firstly, let me salute the remarkable work done by Dr. Mrithi during her term as Regional Director of the WHO for Africa. Under her management, we saw significant progress being made. The state of health of African people still remains worrying. We also salute the memory of Dr. Faustin Ndugulile, who died recently and deprived us of his vision and his experience. However, he left us a program which we can build on and improve situation and prospects. It is a great honor for me to address you today. I am doing this in all humility, given the scope of the challenges ahead. Over the last few years, our region was struck head-on by a succession of health crises, climate crises, as well as the ongoing epidemic, which require adjustments of our health systems. Our region showed remarkable resiliency, particularly through men and women who work every day in the health systems. My profound conviction is that it is a moment for our continent to change course, to speed up Africa's development and make it meet its ambitions. I propose a strategic ambition for Africa in all movement, a clear, realistic road ahead, and an ambitious one which should make WHO Africa a partner of confidence, a driving force for health, and an essential tool for its member states. Let me give you 6 pillars which underpin my vision for the next 5 years. They reflect choices and priorities, as well as impactful components in order to meet the critical challenges in our region. Let's begin with our common concern: the chronic lack of investment in health in our regions. It's an initial pillar which I would like the regional office to concentrate on: a new deal, a new covenant for health investment. The figures are there for all to see. People pay for health care out of their pockets. In order for 200 million Africans, it means a huge cost element, catastrophic differences which put more than 100 million families in poverty, whereas for 85 million, the high cost of healthcare means they don't have access to it. It's unacceptable, and it is a complete waste. Public expenditure and social security cover an insignificant amount. Only 2 countries in our region comply with the Abuja commitment, that is 15% of their budget given over to health. This leaves our health system dependent on outside partners for 1/3 of the expenditure. Now, this lack of investment has become chronic and acute because there's been a reduction of 70% in foreign aid. It is highly regrettable, but that's the new state of affairs, with disastrous effects for areas such as maternal and healthcare, AIDS, HIV, and the consolidation of our health system. This makes even more fragile our programs relating to UHC. Now, in contrast, and perhaps thanks to the upheavals that have taken place, this is the opportunity to change direction. We need to stop thinking about financing of health as a mere cost element which we try to bear. Health is not just a matter of expenditure, but it is one of investment. Such investment will make it possible to make savings in the long term for development of the continent and its social stability and cohesion. I would therefore suggest that a strategic pact be entered into based on 3 levers: harnessing of increased national resources, financial innovation, and a rethink of international cooperation. Such initiatives will be coordinated through a WHO regional platform for harnessing resources, and which is transparent and which is open to many donors with a view to make up for the drop in foreign assistance. This new deal, this covenant for health investment in Africa must meet the legitimate aspirations of our people in terms of better access to quality health care. This, therefore, includes primary health care. It's the second pillar which I propose in terms of the work in the regional office. Rethink primary health care. It's the basis for health sovereignty. We can only move forward towards UHC through a revamping of primary healthcare systems in our countries. What we are doing now does not mean meet the needs of our people, neither in terms of access or quality. You have to make a qualitative jump. Extension and modernization of primary health care is necessary. Obviously, it means taking advantage of the present crisis relating to official development system in order to rethink our health system and use a model relating to the superposition of programs, a vertical superposition, and a consolidation of health systems of the basis. Give added value to the value of health systems working hand in hand with high-performance hospital systems, guaranteeing fair access to health from the rural areas. But you also have to think about the urban areas because they are often neglected. It's part of our cultural heritage. A multi-sectoral approach to health issues with policies to promote health, meeting the needs of patients, and anticipates the challenges relating to chronic epidemics with a One Health program, including all the fundamental challenges. I promise to support countries and promote a UHC model which would be sustainable and take inspiration from the successful experiences which have taken place in Africa. Over the last few years, Africa has seen an increase in emergency services. 60% of African people live in conflict areas with a significant impact on health system. 82% of those Africans in a state of chronic lack of health care live in areas of conflict. So you need to have a specific approach to protect the people involved. Hence the third pillar, building resilient systems and ensure continuous basic health care. That is why I commit myself to working with member states by harnessing the necessary resources to identify vulnerabilities at an early stage and build capacity in terms of human and organizational methods so that we can more rationally use all the tools at our disposal, including the digital tools, etc. Invest in priorities in terms of strengthening health infrastructure and communication and technical units in risk areas in order to strengthen access to health in these areas and also guarantee the safety of healthcare workers. all this can only be done with motivated human resources and well-qualified ones. That's why we will have to invest in human resources as a foundation of the WHO program. We need to make operational the African Consensus on Sustainable Investment in Training and motivating health professionals, particularly in poorer areas, and also come up with relevant programs against the brain drain. Obviously, an investment in human resources, it has to go hand in hand with the African Charter in order to prepare best for the future. Train future health workers will be at the core of WHO Africa program. The region will obviously implement the African consensus on the need to make more intelligent investments and more sustainable investments in healthcare. Such investment will make up for the lack of investment and in human resources in Africa, as well as the way the African societies which are being modernized see future health workers. If we are to modernize and upgrade health systems, promote health and protect people, all these things require political will and mobilization. So you need a health diplomacy which refocuses health on social and economic development in Africa. And that is my fourth pillar. The Covenant for Investment in Africa must support a concrete action, a visible one on the part of member states in order to improve their resilience and their primary health care. The commitment and support of political actors in the continent is essential. I should note that health has not always benefited from the attention it deserves in terms of the priority choices for the development of our countries. However, the drying up of aid is an opportunity to refocus the international agenda on health priorities. The WHO in Africa must use its legitimate reputation and its power to refocus the discussion on health and development. We have a huge potential which is not used enough in terms of political authorities, development partners, multilateral institutions, and the media. All need to be involved. I commit myself to making this a priority by using to the fullest the political reputation and credit which the WHO has in the region. We shall do this in full consultation and synergy with all the institutions of the African Union, particularly with Africa CDC. My sixth pillar would be a WHO which is skillful and which is better able to listen to its member states. I would like to refocus WHO Africa on its primary vocation, strategic and technical support to member states. The present crisis in terms of financing WHO has created structural and psychological conditions for a radical reform of the action of the regional office. The priority of the regional office will involve technical support which will be flexible and will take account of the diversity of our continent. Countries are different and which meet the specific needs of each country. A more effective harnessing of local, regional, international resources, what I call the Covenant for Investment in Africa, a better synergy between the regional offices and the headquarters with complementary approaches, support which would be more consolidated in order to help countries develop their programs and make them more relevant, geared towards results, including the specific features and the emergency situations in each country. I now turn to Portuguese. I am committed to strengthen the WHO's functions and renew its role and guarantee sensitization, transparency in terms of results, as well as an exemplary system of governance. For that, we need leadership which must come to the fore in Africa, more open to the world. I think that I am up to the task. I have a wide range of relevant experience in terms of leadership as regards the regional directorship. My professional experience includes support to governments in terms of developing health plans and national development health plans, as well as leadership in terms of multinational projects and coordination of a network of countries, including political dialogue for health.
Over the years, I've had to manage large international and multicultural teams of experts and to coordinate work with government instances and international agencies. I've done this across multiple countries in all the regions of our continent, in French-speaking countries, Anglophone, as well as Lusophone Africa, and even also beyond our continent, and including 6 years in WHO headquarters. I've experienced the potential of WHO firsthand, but also its limitations. My work brought me to manage large teams of international experts, to mobilize resources and convince and include reluctant and skeptical stakeholders as partners and collaborators. As a result, I can now build on a vast network of technical experts, policymakers, and people with experience and ideas in government, NGOs, and partner agencies. This, I think, will be crucial for building the consensus on an ambitious New Deal to invest in the health of Africa's people. Excellencies, dear colleagues, my experience across Africa has taught me what can be done to move forward. Crucially, however, it has also taught me how it can be done, technically and politically, what the obstacles are, also within the organization, how they can be overcome. It has taught me the value of creating alliances, of innovating and of building an own experience. It has taught me the value of providing visible and tangible results in the field with better access and better care for all. It has taught me the power of Afro-optimism. Ensemble, passons à l'action.
Together, let's act. Excellencies, our generation cannot remain passive. The world is looking at us, our population is looking at us, they want results. I can't promise perfection, but I can promise constant energy, unwavering commitment, and a constant listening ear. We need collective action to ensure that WH Africa is an institution that meets the requirements of it. I would be an experienced, seasoned leader who is forward-facing. Thank you for your trust in me.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. We will now continue with the question and answers. I shall now ask the Secretariat to take the board, show it to everyone that it is empty, and then pass it around to collect the name tags. Dr. Mohammed, you may either remain at the podium or take a seat at the main table. Algeria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The candidate, in his presentation, spoke about 6 priority axes with various priorities. I was wondering, if tomorrow he is elected as regional director, which would be the 3 priorities to be set up in the short term as regional director, the 3 priorities? Could you please repeat the last part of your question? Thank you. In your presentation, you proposed 6 strategic axes with various priorities. If you're elected regional director tomorrow, what would be the top 3 priorities that you would implement in the short term at a regional level? Thank you.
Très bien.
Thank you very much. Excellent question. Thank you, Your Excellency. Indeed, we reflected on this with the member states. I will directly contact the countries so that together we can come up with the main priorities. I will make proposals. One of my proposals would be what I call the New Deal, which is what will we do facing the current crisis that we are going through, that I think is an opportunity. How will we face this challenge? And I have very concrete proposals. Perhaps towards the middle or the end of this year, we could organize a conference on this current crisis. But what is very important is to listen to the member states. We need to listen to them so that we can have a discussion to best understand their needs regarding the WHO, because we have various partners, but we know that the WHO has a very specific position. So the ministers listen to the WHO, the only agency which has the opportunity to meet the ministers of health every week. So I will establish a dialogue with member states. It would also be very important for me to continue the ongoing reform, not only of the regional office, but also of the country offices. I followed closely the structural reform that is ongoing at a regional level. I am also following the one that's happening at an international level. And at a regional level, the ongoing reform should be continued in order to deepen it. Those are the 3 things, therefore. Reform the structure, listen to the countries to best understand their priorities, and discuss specifically about how we're going to deal with the current financing crisis which we are dealing with at the moment. Thank you.
Mozambique.
Bom dia.
Good morning. One of the serious concerns in Africa are premature pregnancies and the problems of an obstructive nature. What do you intend to do in terms of strategy to handle this?
As fístulas obstétricas.
Fistulas, obstetric. They constitute a source of high mortality in Africa. Thank you very much. Mozambique is a country I lived in for 5 years. Thank you. It's a very important point. The obstetrical problems in African countries, which they have to face. It's a crucial point, and the statistics are not acceptable. So from my standpoint, we not only need to handle what we see, but we have to go to the very roots of those problems, which refer to maternal health systems. They must be considered as important. Along those lines, a better budget, better investment at the community level, and a strengthening of the district health systems, as well as dealing with the specific needs of women and adolescents when they are pregnant. And when they are pregnant, obviously they have to be monitored, prenatal consultations, etc., but also well-equipped services in order to take into account the urgent nature of some obstetric problem. It's an entire whole which needs to be considered, taking into account the role that all the levels of community can play, from primary health care to our hospitals. Thank you very much.
Gabon.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you once again, Professor, for your presentation. Regarding prevention, if you were elected, of course, over the past years, in spite of the disengagement of a number of partners, some countries like Gabon weren't able to benefit from some initiatives like Gavi. If you are elected to the position of regional director, what would you do to repair what I believe is an injustice? Thank you.
Hein? Vous êtes? Ah, OK. La prévention, oui, très important.
Prevention, yes, it's very important. My apologies. When we talk about Gavi, I was privileged to be able to coordinate everything that the WHO does worldwide regarding strengthening health systems for 4 years when I was working here at the HQ of the WHO, and I am currently member of the Independent Committee of Gavi. There are around 40 of us. Gavi supports countries for proposals, and it gives a huge amount of financing. We have to be able to deal with this. It should be part of the New Deal that I would like to discuss with countries. What can we do with this withdrawal? Bill Gates said that he will give a lot of money. Okay, we've all seen that. It's not brand new news. We all know about that. But what will we do to make the most of that? What will we do regarding the position of South Africa, which coordinates the G20 currently? What will we do with diplomacy so that health is included in all of the discussions and it is at the center of international aid? How will we be able to deal with that financing gap? Since Gavi is mainly funded by the United States, which has withdrawn from the WHO, we've lost a large part of that funding. As I mentioned in my presentation, the revitalization of the collaboration for health funding should be done with a discussion with the member states. We also need to discuss with Bill Gates and the US. But we also have people like Bill Gates in Africa, so we need to talk to the private sector in Africa to deal with the funding gap that we are so brutally afflicted by at the moment. We need to talk with the member states. So yes, prevention is key. We need to find more funding. The public health institutions exist. For example, the one in Gabon deals with all the aspects such as prevention and preparedness and surveillance of illnesses. We worked together. I think we need to operationalize the new deal which I spoke about and which I propose to the organization. I think we should have a special conference on financing health in our continent. Thank you.
Senegal.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Professor, for your presentation. I know you apply a lot of importance to basic health services. So I would like to ask you, which resources can we use to ensure that the reform is made concrete, especially for basic healthcare in Africa? Thank you.
Merci bien.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I was lucky enough to go to Senegal very often. We're closely tied. Community health in Senegal is very committed. In French-speaking countries, we all know what the mutual work has been done, and we are pioneering countries in this. Basic healthcare has been neglected for a number of years, and we need countries to relaunch basic healthcare using the concentration and added value of our communities. We have community values we need to implement. Not only programs set up by partners, because that's often what we tend to see, they're the most visible. We don't necessarily have the time for that, but we need the health ministers and its partners, which are other development partners. Those other developmental sectors, including the Ministry for Finance, Ministry for Decentralization, Ministry for Communities, need to work together to identify true community leaders and benefit from the knowledge of those local leaders. They need to be trained, they need to be capacitated, and also motivated, because what we notice is that they're often motivated by Gavi or the International Fund, but we can train them at a local level or even at a regional level. Maybe the Ministry of Health and its partners can finance their training and their roles so that they can be the first focal point on the ground. We know that culturally, that when we go to a hospital, people also go to different healthcare systems like traditional medicine, and our traditional leaders know the needs, the cultural needs and social needs at a local level, not just in Dakar, for example. You don't necessarily know what happens in the village of Casamas. The people in that village know what happens there on the ground. It is a strength, it is a value that we need to make the most of. We shouldn't let that be funded by partners so that they can create their own program. And I'm saying this because I know what I'm talking about. If you go to a district health service, you will see a Gavi representative or the World Bank representative. What we need to see is that it is under the management of the local district and local leaders. Thank you.
Central African Republic.
Merci, Madame Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Drame. We appreciate your ideas and priorities. You spoke about radical reforms in the regional office. Give me one aspect. What are you going to change? It doesn't work well, so what are you going to change, and what will be the impact on our countries? Sorry, what is your country? I apologize. I am from the Central African Republic. Thank you. I said that you spoke about radical reforms in the regional office. So could you give me an example? What is a weak point in the regional office, and what will you therefore change in order to have a positive impact? I am at ease to answer this question. When I was in Bangui in 2019, I noted one thing. I am speaking in full cognizance of the facts. Self-criticism is important. Very often, you have ready-made solutions for a country. The English speakers say one size fits all. No. You have to be really with your ears to the ground. Listen to the people, and the regional office will continue with the ongoing reform of the organizational chart, but I'll see to it that those colleagues to be chosen will not only be chosen on objective and answerable criteria, but will be based on follow-up, and they will meet specific needs. For example, if you go to the CAR or to Gabon, they are neighboring countries with the same package of activities, that's a mistake. If you go to Senegal and to Cabo Verde with the same approach, is a mistake, in my view. If you go to Seychelles and Madagascar, islands, you have the same approach, it's a mistake. The regional office must listen more to member countries. And when I say listen, I'm talking about active listening, discuss issues with the countries themselves. And the responses to the WHO support meet the specific needs of countries. If you go to Sao Tome, which is a neighbor of Gabon, it's not the same thing. So I repeat, the needs must be specific, and the regional office must be actively listening and must be monitored. I think the efforts are necessary. Unfortunately, not many efforts are made as things stand.
Equatorial Guinea.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. We'll pose the question to the candidate regarding what specific strategy will he has for small countries and little islands in supporting their health care system. The question is being posed in the context of not always from the regional office has managed properly the demand of those small countries. How this will change under your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Minister. I think this is a very important question. As I was just saying, I was even giving some examples. Small countries, since they are small by dimension, for me they are not small. They are just small by dimension. When they are participating in these regional meetings, in global meetings, hardly their voices are heard. I think we should we should tailor our support to the specificity of country needs. If I give some examples, I give Seychelles, Comoros, and Madagascar. or Ethiopia, or more or less in the same, etc. If we take Guinea Equatorial and Cameroon and RCA, be neighbors, we go with the same, no, I think we have to listen to them. That's why I will suggest to create a sort of, I wouldn't say parallel working team, but a team colleagues in charge of the small countries, because it's crucial. I've experienced that, to tailor them in order to communicate regularly with these countries, to listen to them, to hear them, and to have written report. And
Thank you, Dr. Drame. Thank you very much.
So tailored support, that will be with a team, that will be my approach. Thank you.
So this concludes the interviews of all candidates. We will proceed to nominate one candidate by secret ballot at the meeting this afternoon, starting at Professor Drame, I just want to say thank you. The interview is now exhausted, and I want to say thank you for being with us today. I will ask the Secretary to accompany you out of the room.
There is no next candidate.
Nobody.
Yes, so we moved down here.
So this concludes the interviews of all the candidates. We'll proceed to nominate one candidate by secret ballot at the meeting this afternoon, starting at 14:30 in this room. We'll resume in a closed meeting with consideration of agenda item number 3 regarding the report on the Committee on Credentials. And immediately after, proceed to the continuation of agenda item 4 for the vote. Only members with 2 lines displayed on the upper left side of their badges will be allowed to enter the room after the break, which is to say no more than 3 persons per delegation. I will now give the floor to the Secretariat if there is any announcement.
Distinguished delegates, la commission de vérification.
The Credentials Committee will meet today during the lunch break at 1:15 for half an hour. The meeting will take place in the garden room on level -1 next to the coffee bar. The 7 member states involved are the following: South Africa, Benin, Gabon, Kenya, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, Zambia. Thank you for your attention.
This concludes our meeting. The meeting is now adjourned.
She needs to say which garden room.
Okay, which garden room?
Room X.
Room X.
Room X, exactly. Room X.
Thank you.
iliyofanyika nimeona mwenyekiti wangu naye alikuwa kimya, alikadhalika na kimya, ingawa tukubaliana. Mimi niliamini hivyo tu kwangu binafsi kwamba ukimya utasaidia kutuliza ile hali ya mashambulizi ya kampeni na kufanya uchaguzi uonekane umeisha. Ndio ilikuwa sababu ya kupotea mitandaoni na kwenye vyombo vya habari, ili wenzetu nazo wanachaguliwa waingie ofisini kwa utulivu badala ile joto ambalo tulikuwa nalo Desemba na Januari. Kwa hiyo baada ya kimya kirefu, miezi karibuni hapa tumeona kilichokuwa kinajitokeza, kilitulazimu sasa wengine turudi kazini. Turudi kazini katika moja kuonesha tuko upande wa chama. Kuna hali ambayo ilikuwa inaendelea, ukimya ule ungeweza kutafsirika tumenuna au tumesusia kazi za chama.